Hard to believe it, but we've finally reached the finish line. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the game that just keeps going, has now concluded its surprise extra round of DLC. The Booster Course Pass and its 6 waves of returning racetracks from across the series' history have captivated racing fans worldwide, taking old nostalgia and giving it a brand new coat of HD paint, and an extra helping of carryovers from the mobile game that crossed its own finish line a while back. So, only one thing to do now: take all 48 tracks from the past and rank them in tier list form. Literally everyone's doing one of these, so as someone who tried to predict this DLC twice, I want to throw my hat in too. We'll be ranking them with a letter grade in 5 distinct tiers. No wait, 7 tiers. Gonna need a couple intermediaries for this one. Each track will be judged based on how well they were recreated and updated for MK8DX, and how fun overall they are to race on. Got a lot to go over, so start your engines. On 3, 2, 1, go! The opening track of the entire pass, and it's pretty mid. With a simpler layout than later city tracks, but still distinct Parisian vibes, it works around Wave 1's less detailed visuals okay enough. Though it may be a lukewarm introduction to both the DLC and the content coming in from Mario Kart Tour, it's a taste of better things to eventually come. So, I suspect the devs wanted a first track from a previous game somewhere in here. Toad Circuit had the most going on out of the ones they had to pick from, what with the 2 layers and glider spot, but it still feels underwhelming and doesn't grab one's attention much. Did Mario Kart Stadium raise the bar that high? Now we're talking. An N64 favorite that got a layout update in Tour, which transferred over to the pass. The new cave section and glide over a broken bridge do wonders to freshen up what was the original track's low point. It does such a good job that Wave 1's simpler textures don't drag it down much at all. The one everyone was hyping up in Wave 1, and real talk, I've never been that into it. The premise is fine and all, and the double-decker track layouts work well, even though there's a clear optimal line, but this version just doesn't do it for me either. For the record, the less dangerous parking lot cars didn't affect this rating. You can tell the Tour devs were still figuring things out with the early city tracks, understanding how to design around memorable landmarks, create 3 or more variations, work around mobile OS limitations, etc. Unfortunately, Tokyo Blur fell victim to this inexperience, leaving the world's biggest city feeling weirdly sterile and safe compared to later efforts. Not to look a gift horse in the mouth, but are we sure this was the right choice from Mario Kart DS to put here? So much more has been done with heavy traffic tracks that this one's mountainside straightaways and simple curves feel as basic as its early wave aesthetics. Not sure what happened. At least the music got an incredible remix. A lot of fans were hoping Tour would revamp this one originally. Then it happened and got really neutered. Not sure if it was a work around a mobile screen and auto acceleration, but the simpler layout with few shortcuts left it such a shell of its former self that the new garden-like visuals just can't salvage it. Unfortunately, Sky Garden is our first major disappointment. Now that's more like it. A fan favorite the instant it dropped into Tour, Ninja Hideaway was the highlight of Wave 1 hands down. The multiple paths, the fun props and obstacles, and the inherently cool premise of driving through a ninja clan's training grounds elevate this one to one of the best in the entire DLC. Did you expect any less? How are we doing so far? Okay, maybe not the greatest. A lot of folks were concerned one wave in that the pass would use its sheer amount of content to offset being lower quality than the base game. But sometimes everything goes wrong on lap 1 and you make up for it the rest of the way. This was one of those times. Wave 2 started with a track I'm apparently more into than most. Maybe simplistic like the other early cities, but it does enough with the nighttime atmosphere and Big Apple locales to still stand out. Biggest downside is its smaller size, making a whole 3-lap race over in a New York, well, you know. We all knew one of the SNES Mario circuits would show up, but that doesn't mean it was a good idea. When Mario Kart 8's base game did so much to remake old retro tracks, having this basically straight rip from Mario Kart Wii is underwhelming next to all the glow-ups. Nostalgia may be strong, but it doesn't keep this edition from feeling too dull. A simple layout with a gimmick normally carried by nostalgia. Told you it can be strong. But this version did something interesting to shake up the dusty desert air. Driving on the train tracks for a full loop, while avoiding the now oncoming train, helps elevate this one a little beyond its roots, even if the new part's a bit rough around the edges. Nostalgia may be powerful, but sometimes it's for stuff that has aged well. Waluigi Pinball had a lot of folks clamoring for its return, and it has a lot going for it. And the aesthetic touch-ups give it even more of an arcadey feel, letting the strong track design work even better. Reusing Wario Stadium's music is a tiny blemish on a strong package. The tour devs hit their stride after a while, and Sydney Sprint shows it. A winding trip through the streets and sights of the city down under that keeps things so interesting you won't mind how weirdly long the second lap is. Soak in the atmosphere and say g'day to the Opera House crowd as you speed on by to the finish line. This is where one remake of a 16-bit track per wave became a thing, and boy was this one out of left field. Some interesting layout stuff here. Driving around a frozen pond, then dropping down onto the pond for the center turn helps it stand out among Mario Kart's many winter tracks. That said, Snowland's just kinda there. Good old Mushroom Gorge. This version combines the Wii Original's alternate pass with 7 and Tour's more consistent jumps and optional glider segment. Makes for a comprehensive race through the fungal highlands. That's a pretty fun time, even if I am not a fan of the color palette they used this time. Wave 2 also locked in a trend of one new non-city track per wave. In this case, racing around a loop of floating frozen desserts in constant anti-grav. Wish I had more praise, but the generic oval shape, iffy layout, and garish aesthetics don't do it many favors. At least the weird tricks you can pull off by colliding with stuff helps a little. Wave 2 was more mixed, with a lot of decent picks compared to Wave 1's single high and several lows. I might seem overly harsh so far, but that's because these waves paled in comparison to what came next. Well, you know how some of the early city tracks were really compressed? This one has the opposite problem. A lot of meandering with hardly anything going on besides recurring chain chomp hazards and London Bridge opening up sometimes. Makes for an experience as unfortunately dreary as the cloudy British sky above. Wave 3 might have missed Halloween, but this track still brought the spookiness along. Set over an actual lake now and not just an abyss, it takes full advantage by splitting the boardwalk apart and moving a big chunk of it underwater. A legitimately good example of how to take an old 16-bit track and modernize it. Ha, Rock Mountain and the Rock Cup. Sneaky puns aside, this one was a shoo-in, and it's The massive vertical contrast and long glide were interesting in Mario Kart 7, but nowadays we've seen bigger and better. Add in the weaker visual upgrades, and you have a rather mediocre addition to the pass overall. I admit I'm biased because this was one of my favorites from Mario Kart Wii, but it was a lot of other people's favorite too. And this version takes the best parts and makes them even better. The unique autumn aesthetics and winding path through the treetops are still a top-tier experience you'll never get tired of. A city track that visits a lot of key points at a quick pace. Insert joke about German efficiency here. The layout has plenty of turns and smartly placed dash panels to keep things interesting, and the banger background music keeps momentum going like clockwork. Unironically, one of the better city tracks. This one was already pretty good, but a little trick on the devs' part elevates Peach Gardens to the fringes of great. Anyone else remember all the streamer reactions to the third lap taking a detour to the unused section and having you do the rest of the track backwards? You gotta high-five the Luigi topiary on the glide near the end. Don't leave him hanging. Hard to believe that with all the snow and ice tracks in the series before, it took until Tour for us to get one with an actual Christmas theme. And it doesn't disappoint. The multi-path drive up the mountain, the quarter pipe at the peak for extra style, the sprint back down with Toads throwing down presents of coins, you can't help but feel festive by the end. What is there to say about this one that hasn't been already? The perfect culmination of Mario Kart 7 back then is still just as amazing at showing how far the player has come. 3DS Rainbow Road remains my favorite track in all of Mario Kart, and even if the music's a slight downgrade this time, it's still among the best of the best. Alright, not bad. The turnaround has begun, with the Moon Cup in particular having nothing but hits. Let's see what more they've lined up. And make sure to subscribe so you'll see what content I have lined up too. Don't want to end up like the people who watched those prediction videos and never saw everything that came out after, right? Something about Amsterdam just makes it feel different from the other city tracks. Is it the super bright sunny weather, the vocals in the music, the natural greenery contrasting the blocky street design? It's probably the underwater canal sections. All combined, it makes this one greater than the sum of its parts. So this one's kind of interesting. It's less overhauled than some others from Super Circuit, and also lost a couple OP shortcuts, yet the changes it got still feel meaningful. Turning the 270-degree turn and jump at the end into driving up a cave and out through a waterfall was a stroke of genius. Overall, pretty solid. This is where I'd make a bunch of snowboarding jokes, if I knew anything about snowboarding. But I can tell a fun racetrack when I see one. Small gripes about certain hazard placements aside, though the deep snow at the bottom is better now, driving down the mountainside and looking cool doing it is still a good time. Oh man, this is one giant love letter to OG Yoshi's Island with clear attention and care behind it. All the different sections inspired by levels in the game, the unique sound effects and music, even a freaking winged cloud you hit to create a shortcut out of floating stairs. This instantly became one of the best tracks in all of Mario Kart. I don't know, something about this one just feels off to me. On paper, it has everything that makes a good city track. Variety of landmarks with unique challenges, standout summer setting, and it's not even that long. So why does this one feel like so much more of a drag to me? It's not bad by any means, but I don't know. What is it with this DLC and head-scratcher picks from Mario Kart DS? I can think of a few others that were also remade in Tour. So was another Mario circuit that necessary? For what it's worth, the devs did pretty well updating this one. Turning the southwest section into a forest area with a Wiggler walking around helps it feel a little less generic. People are really into Waluigi's signature tracks, aren't they? Good thing both came back. This motocross mashup from Double Dash got a visual overhaul and some quality of life updates with 2 raised sections in the home stretch. The second one is a much appreciated safety net for that brutal hairpin, making Waluigi Stadium better than ever. Oh man, you want a city tour that feels like a race, an event, and a party all at once? With spectacular set pieces at every turn interwoven around and through each other, Singapore Speedway never has a dull moment, except maybe the abrupt second trip through Chinatown at the end. My pick for the very best of the city tracks. I hear that's a common sentiment. Getting better. With 2 S ranks and not a single C or D, Wave 4 was the strongest one yet. What started as just some stopgap DLC had, at this point, become an event nearly as exciting as a new Mario Kart. So how'd the last 2 waves fare? Oh hey, here's my pick for second best city track. Definitely the most unique one. Barely drives through the city itself at all, spending most of its run on the Acropolis instead. But can you blame it with all the ancient ruins there are to drive around and trick off of? With twists and turns aplenty, you'll feel like an ancient Greek hero yourself by the end. Another one you knew had to show up before all was said and done. Daisy Cruiser was already a highlight of Double Dash, and every iteration has fine-tuned it more, from 7 turning annoying spots/hazards into water sections, to this version's wider turns and more signposted layout. It's the kind of memorable experience you want from an ocean cruise. I admit there's some bias here because this is another of my favorites from Mario Kart Wii, and I didn't think it'd make it. Moonview Highway may just be a combination of themes from every heavy traffic track before it, but that doesn't make barreling through the city streets at high speed any less exhilarating, unless you swerve into a bomb car. Remember when people memed about the rumors of Mario Kart Tour getting a bathroom track? In what might be the devs' single biggest creative flex, they got absolutely everything they could out of the bath time theme. The alternate routes, the drainpipe segment, the freaking bidet, another absolute winner that came out of nowhere. While I'm lukewarm on this one layout-wise, I appreciate how different each variant/lap is. The boardwalk, the run through Venice Beach, the oil field of all things, and a stadium flyby just in time to watch the Dodgers blow it in the playoffs again. I don't know, everything here is solid, it just lacks that extra something. Speaking of lacking something, don't quote me, but I swear I heard Mario Kart 8's Skybox isn't able to change in real time based on player progression, which forced Sunset Wilds to lack its iconic mid-race sunset. Worse yet, it exposes the fact that this track's design hasn't aged the best, and didn't get updated much at all. Maybe something else from Super Circuit should have gone here instead. I have mixed feelings on this one. On one hand, I didn't mind when Mario Kart 7 Onward changed the underwater segment and replaced the disproportionately punishing electric hazards. On the other, I am not a fan of this version aesthetically. The texture work feels like the early waves, and the muddy brown palette is a big step down from the original. Oh well. This one was where Tour's city tracks started hitting their stride, weaving through the streets of Vancouver, the late autumn mountain trails, and even another stadium cameo. It keeps things exciting the whole way through. What is it about the cities set at night always punching above their weight? Wave 5 entered the home stretch with another strong showing, one blemish aside. The Feather Cup even matched the Moon Cup's ratings. One more wave to go. Did the newest, and last, stick the landing? I wasn't sure I'd like this one going in, a laid-back trip through Rome in the dead of night, but this one too punches above its weight, with an interesting layout full of winding roads and memorable moments, including 2 Colosseum segments. This drive has a lot to see. A strong opener for Wave 6 that offers a surprising challenge, especially in 200cc. I didn't think DK Mountain would make it once DK Summit got confirmed, but it still found a way, and it's better than ever. The wider track makes the downhill turns less harsh, the rough terrain is telegraphed better, and you can even trick off the rickety bridge now. I was never that into this one before, but I'm legitimately enjoying it now. You don't associate Daisy much with rest and relaxation, but this cozy circuit through a seaside resort town has always been a refreshing change of pace. This version did a good job updating everything, taking what was already a solid track and making it still solid despite how much the bar has been raised. And this is Wave 6's lowest grade. How did the Tour devs knock it out of the park with most of the non-city tracks they made? Underwater Ruins is a premise I'm surprised Mario Kart never did before, and Piranha Plant Cove takes it and runs with it. Even has 3 variants like the cities, and each lap feels completely unique. Can some of the crew behind these stick around for the next game? The final city track, and it ends them on a high note. A fast-paced tour through the Spanish capital, it throws you into moment after memorable moment without a lull in the action. The devs had this down to a science by this point, and it shows. Hell of a way to begin the final cup. Can we get Real Madrid fans to do the stadium chant at their home games? Have to admit, this one caught me by surprise. I started doubting its chances after the first few waves, but not only is it here, it got an impressive glow-up. Even more color than before highlights the planet's otherworldly beauty, and they even added a new shroom cut at the end. The opening quarter pipe could use more visibility, but the overall package is a strong one. We almost went the entire way without a Bowser track, and of all things, they took an old SNES one and gave it a massive overhaul. It was clear from the moment it was added to Tour that it was destined for the past with how much it plays around with slopes and elevation. Fiery and intense, it's a great penultimate challenge. And last but not least, the one nearly everyone anticipated yet feared wouldn't make it, Mario Kart Wii's iconic Rainbow Road is here. With breathtaking new visuals, anti-grav the whole way, heard mixed opinions about it, but I personally don't mind, and features like the big shroom cut and over-the-top falling animation kept intact, it's all the best parts of your memories, with all, or most, of the rough edges cleaned up. An amazing end for an amazing run of DLC. There you have it. Every racetrack in the Booster Course Pass ranked in a comprehensive tier list that there's no chance you completely agree with. But that's the beauty of these things. There are undoubtedly hundreds of them out there, and no two will be alike. We've finally reached the end for Mario Kart 8, a run of almost a full decade that's seen it become the definitive Mario Kart experience. Even if some fan favorites didn't make it back before the end, maybe next time, Toad's Factory. Whatever the series does next, it'll have to be something very new and very different. Something that'll help it stand out on its own alongside its monumental predecessor. I might have some ideas for that, but that's a topic for a future video. Special thanks to the following for helping make this video happen. Thanks as well to my patrons for the continued support. No good racer can get anywhere without a good pit crew. So, until next time, take a pit stop yourself. If you've made it to the end of this, you've earned one.